Got digging through the past, crazy tales they uncover fast. History stranger than you think. They'll also talk about wieners in a blink. They'll talk about wieners in a blink. Oddball history.
All right, we're back. Hey, we're back. Oddball History, version 3, with just one guy now. Hey, we're back. It's Oddball History. Sorry about that. I don't know what that was about. We're back. I'm back. Jimmy has stepped away from the pod. We wish him well. He turned in his podcasting badge and podcasting gun to me earlier this week per podcasting protocol. I don't know if y'all were aware of that. We all get badges and guns and then turn them in when we quit a given podcast. And then if you're on the podcast, if you're the last to leave the podcast, then you're supposed to take all the badges and guns and put them in a duffel bag and chuck them down a special podcasting storm drain. But I don't want to bore you with like the technicalities of podcasting. The point is, we're back. Hiya. How have you been? Oh, I missed you, each and every one of you. I've been thinking about you, but not too much. Not in like an intrusive way. Just in passing, an acceptable amount, I would say. But yeah, welcome. We got a great story for you for our comeback episode. It's about hippopotamuses. What else? Hippopotamuses, the hippopotamus bill, the hippo bill of 1910. When they briefly considered, hey, maybe we need to ship a bunch of hippos to America's Gulf Coast to solve a meat shortage, a national meat shortage. But let's get some hippos in here. And there was it seemed like it might happen for a little bit. 1910 being the way it was, it seemed like it really might happen for a little bit until ultimately cooler heads prevailed. And we didn't get to see swarms of hippopotami on the coasts of America, as was once being predicted by pretty like respectable newspapers, at least at the time, respectable publications. But without further ado, is that the saying? Without further ado, it sounded weird, but I think it is. Without further ado, enjoy the Hippo Bill of 1910. Shout out hippopotamuses. Hey, they're big, they're ill-tempered, they live in the water, but they come out and graze on grass at night. What's that all about? I don't know. We don't find out in this episode, but we will be talking about the time in 1910 when the American government briefly but seriously considered importing hippos to solve an ongoing meat crisis. Facing the meat question, it was a big thing at the time. We didn't have enough meat. We as a nation, we were looking at our elected officials and going, hey, Goober, where's the meat? Because there just wasn't enough meat. Besides that, Upton Sinclair's The Jungle had come out the year before, so people weren't even feeling good about the meat they could get. It was a big problem. And into this meatless historical crossroads stepped three guys who were like, hey, have you thought of trying a really fantastical harebrained scheme to solve this crisis? A source for this episode is a wonderful long-form article in the Atavist magazine, number 32. It's called American Hippopotamus by John Moo Allen. It's free to read online. Highly recommend it. Primarily, it's three dudes pushing the hippopotamus meat thing on America. You have, first off, the American Frederick Russell Burnham. Then you have the South African Fritz Duquesne. Interesting that these two are working together because they, as we will see, have just finished up a war where they were sworn to kill each other. They were trying to kill each other as on opposite sides of the Second Boer War. It's crazy. It's basically like if the spy versus spy guys went into business together. Wild shit. And then they're joined by a congressman from Louisiana named Robert Broussard. Mostly, again, it's Burnham. He's the number one hippo guy, and he's the guy who probably had the idea in the first place. We'll see. He put out like a magazine article about it. But real interesting story, real American original Frederick Russell Burnham. He's an adventurer, a soldier of fortune, and king of the scouts, like as an old time like war scouts that would ride around behind enemy lines doing all kinds of badass shit. But he's born on Lakota Sioux land in 1861 in Minnesota. One time, great Burnham story. One time, the Lakota Sioux, they had been torching cabins in the area, but his mom had to leave the house. His dad was already away. His mom had to leave the house, and so I guess she didn't want to carry him. So she hid him in a pile of freshly shucked corn, quote, too green to catch fire. She told him to keep perfectly still. Then she took off, vanishing into the cottonwoods toward a cabin. But her son was still alive. He'd stayed motionless in the corn, stashed away like baby Moses in his basket as a river of violence rushed past. Quote, I had faithfully carried out my first orders of silent obedience, Burnham wrote later on. That's the thing with Burnham. He's a badass, but a big part of his being a badass is just lying still and quiet for long stretches of time. That's a big thing. You can go far with that. If you can just hide and be still and quiet for a long time, I learned through this story, you can really go far, at least in the world of 1910. Classic Burnham story. It shows all the things he respects, like patience, quietude, a connection to the natural world, which is interesting because he spends his whole career helping wealthy businessmen conquer and exploit the natural world and kill people who lived by the land, like he thought was like so noble and important. Oh, the duality of Frederick Russell Burnham. As you can imagine, childhood like this, it was no childhood at all. He's basically a hardened, grown-ass man by the age of 13. He gets a job as a mounted messenger for Western Union. At 14, some family up in Iowa, they get concerned about him, and they send for him. He comes and lives with this family. But again, he's bored to tears by anything that isn't just insane adventure. So after a year of that, he steals a canoe and goes off to Texas. In Texas, he becomes an apprentice to an old scout named Holmes, who had lost his whole family in the Indian Wars. So Holmes he's teaching him the ways of old time scouts. He teaches him to sniff out campfires by riding along high ridges. Hey, that's an invaluable thing to know. He could read dust clouds and be able to tell if they were made by single riders or a wagon, how to stay completely still for long stretches of time. See what I mean? It's huge. And then never use a campfire. He also teaches himself to eat very little, actually comes to regard his stomach as kind of like an adversary to be beaten, to be hammered into submission through near starvation diets. Him and the supermodels on the early seasons of America's Next Top Model had a lot in common to this end. His favorite treat actually was, because remember, he's not using campfires, so what he would do is he would take deer jerky and then he would hammer it until it was a fine powder, and then he would mix it with flour and bake it into a saddle like a saddle shaped cake. Like it just went on his horse, and then whenever he was hungry, he would just tear off a piece of this horrible sounding deer cake. He works as a civilian tracker for the Army during the Apache Wars. Still is a very young man. He does a little bit of gold mining. Marries. He doesn't hit a lot in the gold mining, but he does. He finds gold in one claim, and then he takes that money and sends off for a woman back in Minnesota named Blanche Blick. They get married, have a son named Roderick, a daughter named Nada, and a later son named Bruce. At first, Burnham makes the old college try of like trying to settle down. He moves the family to an orange grove in Pasadena, where he tries his hand at orange farming, but it's Iowa all over again. He's just bored. He hates it so much, you know. And meanwhile, he's reading about all of the adventures going on in South Africa and in Rhodesia with Cecil Rhodes over there. He's like, hey, this guy seems great. Not problematic at all. I want to go have adventures with this great guy, Cecil. And so he does. He takes off in 1893. He brings his family with him. He does love it. He loves fighting in the wars, doing his scouting shit, having these great adventures. But at one point, it's the first Matabele War. The Ndebe lay siege to Bulawayo, which is where Rhodes's family and most of the colonists live. They lay siege pretty soon after famine sets in, and Burnham's daughter Nada is one of the kids who dies during that siege. So that's heartbreaking. He does manage. He's away when that happens. He goes on to assassinate the spiritual leader of the Matabele people, the Malimo. I might be butchering that. I'm sorry if I am. He's a really hugely important figure to them. He has a major hand in the planning of the rebellion in the first place, and he promises the Ndebele people through his priests that the colonists' bullets would turn to water and their cannon shells would turn to eggs. Which I gotta say, if you're one of the warriors actually fighting this war, you gotta be like, are we sure about this? Because I gotta say, like, if you're wrong about this, it's gonna, oh boy, or our face is gonna be red, you know. But so he tracks him to a cave. It's full of enemy warriors. He's crawling on his belly, you know. So the story goes anyway. And then right as he's the Malimo is doing an immunity dance, they shoot him. Burnham shoots him. Jumps over the Malimo's body as on his way out of the cave. Not long after that, they found out later that that guy might not have been quite as important as they thought he was. But there is a better story if he was really important. So they kind of stuck with that. In any case, Burnham was out of the country pretty soon after that. He went to Alaska chasing another gold rush, hoping to strike gold. But again, like Iowa, like the Orange Grove, he's bored to shit, not fighting in a war. He'd rather be fighting in a war. They didn't have cars back then, but if they did, he would have a bumper sticker that would say, I'd rather be fighting in a war. So he's in Alaska, hating it. He knows there's going to be another war soon, and there is. It's the second Boer War coming up. He knows that's coming, and he's really actually depressed that he might miss it. So he, in 1900, his prayers are answered. He receives a telegram from Lord Roberts, the new commander of British forces in South Africa. Quote, Lord Roberts appoints you on his personal staff, all expenses paid. If you accept, start shortest way to Cape Town and report yourself to him. Burnham drops everything. He's on a ship like 2.5 hours later. That's how ready he is to go fight. He wants to be in war, you know? He yearns for it. So he helps turn the tide of the war. He comes in. He's the chief of scouts again, you know, for the British. He helps turn the tide of the war. He works with the future founder of the Boy Scouts, Robert Baden-Powell, at this time. And Powell is like inspired by what a badass Burnham is to do the scout thing. He's like, we need more Burnhams running around. We got to get the kids eating deer cakes off their horses if we want a future for this country. He helps wipe out the Boers. But all the while, he's like, he kind of likes the Boers more than the guys he's serving with. He kind of he's like, these guys are cool. They're like living off the land, you know. They're doing shit the way I want to do shit. But he just he still, you know, killed them by the dozen, one would imagine. But he likes the Boers. He respected their game, especially these guys, Danny Theron and Fritz Duquesne, nicknamed the Black Panther of the Veld. not the Velve. That's a comedy club in Austin, I think. Not the Black Panther of the Velve. I don't know who the Black Panther of the Velve is, but the Black Panther of the Veld is Fritz Duquesne. Burnham is, during the Second Boer War, he hadn't slowed down. He's still doing all kinds of wild adventure shit. Like one time, quote, once he hid for 2 days and nights inside an aardvark hole. Another time he floated down a river disguised as a dead cow drifting under a fresh, fleshy hide with 2 eye holes cut out of it to size up an enemy camp downstream. Which, amazing. Again, a lot of Burnham is just like him, like, and there's a hide over him with eye holes cut out of it. But seriously, if you're willing to do that shit, you can go so far in turn of the century warfare. In the spring of 1900, Burnham was captured by Boer scouts, but they never identified him. Because this being, like, nobody knew what he looked like. They only knew a couple things about him. They knew he was illiterate, and they knew that he was godless. It was, like, really weird that Burnham wasn't religious at this time. So that was, like, a big thing that preceded him. And so to throw them off his trail, he started just talking theology straight away. He was like, he said, you guys think, like, dunking or sprinkling is the better way to baptize. And they're like, oh, well, this can't be Burnham. He's talking God. But he also quotes poetry to further throw them off, and it works. They never do identify him, and he eventually escapes. He hides out in a field for an entire 24 hours while people, again, lying perfectly still. Classic Burnham. And in this time, he's like, it's a pretty funny scene. He has an ear of corn that he was stashing for later, I guess. He eats so little, and then he has this ear of corn, and it was in his shirt pocket. And he's lying there in the field flat, just chiding himself for having this ear of corn. He was saying to himself, what a fool to be such a glutton for food, with his single corn cob in his shirt pocket. But luckily no one noticed the corn cob sticking up, and he managed to continue his escape. Another time, he's basically going around cutting supply lines in this time for the British, cutting Boer supply lines. And he was on his way to blow up a railway bridge connecting Pretoria to the Indian Ocean. And en route, he encounters a bunch of Boers. They managed to shoot his horse, Stembok, out from under him, and the horse falls on him. He thinks he broke his back. He didn't, but he's still pretty horribly injured. He continues on. He's like holding his guts and coughing up blood the whole way, but he does make it to the rail bridge and blows it up. They of course, after the bridge explodes, they're searching for him, the Boers, but they do not find him. He manages to hide again, and at this point, he's in the woods, and they're searching for him. At one point, they get as close as 20 yards away from him, close enough that Burnham could hear the Boer general yelling at his guys for being incompetent. Which, hilarious. A really good time if you're Burnham hiding there. How do you not like snicker, I guess that was why Burnham was so good, because he wouldn't snicker. He's hurt. He makes it back to his camp. He's hurt, so they send him back to England to recuperate. He meets Queen Victoria, gets a Distinguished Service Order from King Edward VII, which, humble son of a bitch Burnham is, he calls almost humiliating. He leaves England to return to America for a really sad reason. Bruce, their youngest son, drowned in the Thames. Weirdly enough, the night before, his older son, Roderick, he was still living in the States, and he had a dream where he saw his younger brother like chase a toy boat into a body of water. He wakes up in a panic, and he's like, oh my God. And they're like, oh, it's just a dream, Wake up the next day, and sure enough, they had got a telegram from Burnham and the family over in Africa that simply said, Bruce drowned, coming soon. Not a lot of emotion in these early 1900s correspondence. Anyhow, once back in California, Burnham gets to work. He writes an article called Transplanting African Animals in Independent Magazine, January 1910. The article's a hit. Of course, it's 1910. They're like, what a great idea. This is. Let's fucking do it. By this point, Burnham's famous in America for all of his exploits during the Apache Wars, and in Africa, known as the greatest scout in the world, decorated for his service to the crown. And he has already presented his friend Teddy Roosevelt with this idea, and obviously Teddy Roosevelt loved the idea. Can you imagine him not loving the idea? He's like, he gave it a stamp of approval on 2 different occasions, actually. Anyway, 2 months after Burnham's article comes out, March 24th, 1910, that's the big day. We have a hearing to discuss the bill introduced by Robert Broussard to appropriate $250,000 for the importation of new useful animals into the country, aka the Hippo Bill, H.R. 23-261, before the House Committee on Agriculture. This guy, Broussard, he's a character too. Cousin Bob, he was known as to his constituents. Like if you've seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, you kind of get the vibe of Cousin Bob Broussard. He's the Hippo Meat Lobby's man in Washington. In a Saturday Evening Post profile of him said, certain Louisianans may protest they are not his cousins. That is a matter of minor importance. The point is that Cousin Bob is their cousin, and he is satisfied even if they are not. It is quite impossible to stop Cousin Bob from being everybody's cousin. So there you have it. He is your cousin whether you like it or not. This guy, Broussard, he has his own reasons for wanting to bring in the hippos. He is less concerned about the meat question and more into the idea of these hippos clearing the waterways of Louisiana from water hyacinths. They were a big old problem back then. They were originally given to the city of New Orleans as a gift from the Japanese delegation to an international cotton exposition in 1884, and it was quickly started choking waterways, putting fishermen out of business, really running amok. Broussard hears how much vegetation hippos eat, and that's all he needs. He says, I quote, I do not think this importation idea can be laughed down. So there you have it. W.N. Irwin is another man. He's not in the big 3, but he kind of jumps on board. He's a federal researcher, and he loved the idea. He said at the hearing on March 24th, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen of the committee, in studying the resources of our country for a good many years, I was led to the conclusion that we ought to have more creatures than we are raising here. So there, he just wants more animals, just in general. Look, we don't have enough animals. That guy's a character, too. He's one of the country's foremost experts on apples. He believed also that America should switch from chicken eggs to turkey eggs, and he could never understand. He would get really angry when he had one of these ideas and it wouldn't catch on immediately. Like with the Hippo Bill, when he's advocating for the Hippo Bill, he gets so mad during that it's not exploding like wildfire that he invites a Washington Post reporter to his office, feeds him a stick of hippo jerky, and complains, I am at a loss to understand why anybody should protest against the hippopotamus as a food animal. There is no good reason beyond that inexplicable American habit of following beaten paths. Everyone seems to hate to go out and blaze a trail. Oh, he's got us there, you know. Nobody wants to be the first guy to eat hippopotamuses because they're cowards. That's why. Make no mistake, W.N. Irwin is right. After Irwin, Burnham comes up. He has his time to testify. He says, frankly, it's weird that we eat so few animals when you think about it. What do we eat, like 3 or 4 animals? Maybe more if you divide up the kinds of fishes, but still it's not that many animals. We should be eating more kinds of animals. He also says, how come everyone's giving us shit But 25 years ago, an Englishman named George Coston imported a bunch of ostriches to start an ostrich farm, at least as weird as Hippo's ostriches, and he's doing great. Also, may I point out, we imported Russian reindeer to Alaska and camels to the Southwest during the Civil War. True, the camels didn't catch on, but that was just because nobody wanted to be the first guy to ride a camel. That's hardly the camel's fault. That's the point Burnham's making. It's not the camel's fault. He's right. Next up, bum, bum, bum. For you imagine, I mean, he knew he was going to be there, so it wasn't that dramatic of a moment. But Burnham, after Burnham testifies, the next guy to testify is fucking Fritz Duquesne, the son of a bitch from the Boers, who he was trying to kill like pretty recently, just a little bit ago. Fritz Duquesne steps up, the Black Panther of the Veld. Duquesne, of course, had an insane story as well. He's born on a farm in East London in the Cape Colony, current-day South Africa, raised by his mother and blind uncle. His father was a hunter and a trader, so he was gone a lot. He went to military college in Belgium, but was called back home when the Second Boer War starts. He goes back home, becomes a courier for Boer commandos, captured and imprisoned 3 times by the British and once by the Portuguese, escapes every time. In fact, when the Portuguese got him, they sent him to Lisbon, and he escaped. Not only escaped, but seduced the jailer's daughter. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, he's also a thing with Fritz Duquesne is a lot of the stories about him were written by Fritz Duquesne. So you got to take everything with a real grain of salt. I choose to just believe it all because it's more entertaining that way. But you see parts of it that you're like, all right, I see what he was going for here. He was just making action movies of himself before action movies were a thing. Goes from Lisbon to England. After he gets caught by the Portuguese, he goes from Lisbon to England, where he claims to be a defector from the Boers. He said he's had a change of heart. He's like, I love the Queen now. I'm actually so down to join up with you guys and kill those damn Boers. That's what he says to them, and they're like, great, here's a uniform. Of course, he takes the uniform, puts it on, just basically gets a free trip back to the war, and then takes the uniform off and goes back to his pals with the Boers. At one point, he goes back to his family homestead for the first time in 11 years. The place is torched. Britain's going real scorched earth with their Boer policy at this point. They are being real brutal. They've torched the place. They shot his sister, kidnapped his mother, hanged his blind uncle. He goes, and again, this is Duquesne's story, so no telling how much of this, if any, is true. But he says he went to this prison camp where he found his mother. She had a new baby, real grim detail there, and both of them are near death. He swears to her that he'll kill 100 Englishmen for every drop of blood in her body. That's a lot of Englishmen. Then leaves. As he's riding out of the camp, 2 British are coming in on horseback. He salutes them as they ride by. They salute back, turns in his saddle and shoots them both in the back, then turns his horse around, dismounts, and kicks both of them in the face. So there you go. It's, again, probably didn't happen, but the story illustrates a point, and that point is Fritz Duquesne really hated the English. Not a fan, especially Lord Kitchener, the guy who's kind of in charge of their South Africa policy back then. He's captured one last time by the British. They send him to Bermuda this time. He quickly escapes to Hamilton, where he becomes a pimp for a sex worker called Vera. One day, a sailor is visiting Vera, and Duquesne steals the guy's uniform, and then he goes to board a yacht, a private yacht. He puts on like a sailor's uniform, and then he tries to act drunk and kind of just stumble on the yacht, which it doesn't seem like a very good plan to me. In my experience, people have more questions when you're visibly hammered, not less. Nobody's like, oh, leave that guy alone. He's just hammered, stumbling up on my yacht, leave him be. So of course it doesn't work. The plan does not work, except it kind of does, because then he gets to talking to the yacht owner. He invented like a headache powder. That's how he got his money. But it turns out he just loves Duquesne. He's like, you're a cool dude. You know what? I'll take you to Baltimore. You don't even have to pretend to be a drunken sailor. I'll do that for you. No need for the charade, So he goes to America. He arrives July 4th, 1902. He sold newspapers for the New York Sun at first, and then the way the world is back then, he graduated from selling them to like writing articles for them. That was possible back then. People are into what he's writing because Teddy Roosevelt, there's that old son of a bitch, Teddy Roosevelt again. He's talking about his plans for after he leaves office. This is in 1909. He's saying he's going to go on a big hunt through Africa. And so capitalizing everyone, it's all anyone can talk about. What a fucking boring time, my God. But they were blown away. Nobody could stop talking about Teddy Roosevelt's upcoming hunting tour through Africa. And so basically Duquesne just capitalized on this. He was like, I know about the bush, and let me tell you something. Teddy Roosevelt is going to do great out there. He's going to kill it. This guy, he knows what he's doing, and then he keeps writing articles like this, and then eventually the popularity starts to wane of these articles. They're like, yeah, we know he's gonna do good, and then Duquesne flips on him, and he's like, actually, Roosevelt sucks. He's gonna do bad out there. He doesn't know how to hunt, and I hate to say it, but his ass is a dandy. He's writing articles. He's having a great time. He's touring, doing a speaking tour that uses Roosevelt's name. Funny enough, it was like titled East Africa, the Wonderland of Roosevelt's Hunt. He's giving stage shows by that name. That's what he's doing leading up to the shows up March 24th. He testifies. Hippos are delicious. All right, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Hippos are delicious, especially hippo brisket. He says they're not dangerous. Not only are they not dangerous, they never use their tails to spray shit all over the place while they're shitting. They don't do it. They never do that. And also, he says the proof of how great hippos are, you need to look no further than his pals, the Boers. He was like, we're living on hippo meat during our recent war with the British. And the committee's like, oh yeah, how did that turn out? And he's like, that's not important. The point is, hippo meat. It's great. Not only do y'all need hippos, he says, y'all need elands. I had to look that one up. It's like a kind of antelope, giraffes, and elephants. He points out that Hannibal crossed the Pyrenees on elephants. I don't really know what point he was trying to make there, but the committee was sold. They loved this guy. They loved Duquesne. One congressman invited him to Bethesda, Maryland, to check out a zebra breeding program they had going on there. And then after this hearing, like America kind of catches hippo fever. Like there's a lot of really positive coverage of this idea in the papers and everything. It was like America itself was like, all right, I guess we're really doing this. I guess we're really all right. Fuck it. Let's, anything seems possible. Again, I saw a horseless carriage the other day. All right, anything seems possible. Bring on the hippopotamuses. The Washington Post said, quote, it was a question of only a very few years now when large shipments of hippos will be made to America. At the time, the New York Times said the idea was practical and timely. And then Lippincott's monthly magazine got the most carried away. Listen to this shit. This animal, homely as a steamroller, first of all right, easy. This animal, homely as a steamroller, is the embodiment of salvation. Peace, plenty, and contentment lie before us, and a new life with new experiences, new opportunities, new vigor, new romance, folded in that golden future when the meadows and the bayous of our southern lands shall swarm with herds of hippopotami. My God, I gotta say, even that's putting a lot on hippopotamuses, man. But It was the time. Everybody was just drinking the Hippo Kool-Aid. Burnham, Broussard, and Duquesne are guys form the New Food Supply Society, along with this con man seeming guy named Elliot Lord. He's like, how come the committee isn't official yet? I need the committee to be official. I'm trying to sell some t-shirts. Make the committee official already. That's kind of his deal the whole time. And everyone else is like, who is this guy? Anyway, that was the way it seemed to me anyway. Elliot Lord, apologize if you were really on the up and up with this Hippo idea. But anyway, months pass, nothing really happens. The society is, again, as the guy was complaining, it was still not official. They were just, it existed only as an idea, really. Loose confederation of dudes who liked the idea of getting some hippos in here. Duquesne is getting pissed. Burnham is preaching patience, and Broussard is not really giving a shit. He has other things going on. He's trying to get a World's Fair to New Orleans and so forth. But Duquesne is getting madder and madder. He's really banking on this Hippo idea for a while. In October 1910, the New York World publishes an article that was like, this guy. Get this, guys. This guy, Charles Frederick Holder of Santa Catalina, California, he says we should import animals from Africa to solve the food supply concerns. And Duquesne fucking loses it. He sends copies of the article to both Broussard and Burnham. He says in his letter to Broussard, he says, "It seems every day I hear of someone else, not Duquesne, being the man who brought this matter before the people. I am working day in and day out to keep this matter before the people, and at some expense, too. The thing was never heard of in D.C. till I spoke to you. No one else, mind you, only Duquesne." So he was furious. He doesn't like this guy stealing his credit for this insane idea that's never going to go anywhere. But anyway, World War I starts, and then Duquesne, again, one of his major driving forces is just his hatred for the British. So World War I starts. He's actually down in South America. He's going to film he's going to do a big adventure down there, coinciding with an adventure that Teddy Roosevelt was doing. He's really kind of swimming in Teddy's wake in a lot of these, but he's going to do an adventure and film it and release it as a movie. But then the war breaks out, and he goes straight to Germany, and he's like, "Put me to work, fellas. I hate those English guys so much." And they do. They hire him as a spy. He spends both world wars doing spy shit. He is operating under a bunch of aliases during this time. Real funny aliases too, stuff like Frederick Barron, that one's not that good. Colonel Bejan, F. Krabs, Colonel Marquise Duquesne, Fred Bouquesne, J.Q. Farn, Bertold Chabot, Von Gotthard, Vam Dam, Fritters, Worthy, and Jim. And some people knew him simply as the handsomest man in Europe, which it said that like people really called him that. Like people knew him by like people had them saved in their phones as that. That's crazy. But anyway, he's most of the time during World War I, he's spending at the docks. He hangs out at the docks in character as a botanist from the Netherlands called Frederick Fredericks. And he would approach drunken English sailors and ask them if they would courier a rare orchid bulb for him when they shipped out overseas in exchange for a bribe. They would, and not knowing that the box did not have an orchid bulb in it, but actually a shitload of explosives. And so he claimed to have sunk 22 ships this way, started upwards of 100 dock fires, which again, those are his numbers. They might not be so high on review. He also claimed responsibility for the destruction of the HMS Hampshire, which killed his old enemy Lord Kitchener, Duquesne, Burnham's old pal and boss, but that is very much in dispute. A lot of people think he just wishes he did that one. But he then reinvents himself as Captain Claude Stoughton, an English war hero. He would do speaking engagements, which is interesting because he hated the English, like all up to leading up to this. You would think he would be sickened just to put on the uniform, but no, when you can make the most money being an Englishman, he's like, he can put his disdain aside, So he's going around as this, giving speeches about war or what, I don't know, being in World War I, which he hadn't been in. Eventually, he's arrested. He's arrested in New York, December of 1917. But of course, the story doesn't end there. This guy's a fucking escape artist, and these are jails in 1917. So one day, after a few months in the city jail, while the state built their case, and England was petitioning to have him extradited for the sinking of the Hampshire, he collapses, claims to be paralyzed. Of course, authorities are real skeptical. They're like, yeah, right, Duquesne. And they actually, this part of the story is so insane. The turn of the century was a wild time. So you know what they did, because they thought he was faking? They jabbed him in the legs and in under the toenails with pins to test if he was faking. Like, that was official New York State policy back then. So they jab him under the toenails and in the legs with pins, but he gives no response. And they're like, ooh, sorry. Our bad, Mr. Duquesne. We really thought you were faking there. They're like, all right, guess he really is paralyzed. They send him back, and it really does appear like he's slowly dying, like he's disabled. So they send him to Bellevue. So at Bellevue, he continues looking worse and worse. He just he kind of just hangs out by this one window watching the birds all day. 2 years he does this. Everyone around him, he appears to be almost incapable of moving at all. But then one night, after 2 years, he escapes. He jumps a ferry and disappears. It turned out that he had smuggled in some hacksaw blades. He's got a couple hacksaw blades in there somehow. So while he was like hanging out by the window, he was like sawing through the bars with his hacksaw blades. I don't know how you get hacksaw blades anywhere. Maybe the CIA ass toolkit we discussed that one time. Do you remember that? I forget what episode it was in, but it looks like a travel toothbrush case, but it had like files in it, and CIA guys would jam them up their ass for escapes, to make a cool escape. And that's cool, He jumps a ferry and disappears. He resurfaces Duquesne in 1941 when he's arrested as the head of a 33-person Nazi spy ring sent to Leavenworth. This time he does not escape. He reportedly was not well liked in prison, mistreated by the other prisoners. He served 14 years before they released him due to his failing health. Died in 1956 at City Hospital on Welfare Island, later renamed Roosevelt Island, which I gotta say, that sounds like a better name for an island. Burnham, for his part, after the hippo thing, also World War I took his attention away from the hippo idea. He at first, he was gonna be part of Teddy Roosevelt once again, doing shit. Teddy Roosevelt was doing this thing where he like put together a crew of like expendables, a bunch of old badass but old soldiers, like a unit of them, and he was like, we're gonna go over there to France and kick some fucking ass if you don't reverse like our policy of neutrality. I think that's what he was fired at. He was trying to make a point. He was trying to say, if you guys don't do it, we'll fucking do it. And so, but eventually they did. The Expendables unit, unfortunately, never did ship out, meaning Burnham never officially, the great soldier he was, never officially fought for the U.S. He did contribute to the World War I effort through what else? Manganese production. Exactly. Very important in the production of steel. And suddenly we couldn't get German manganese because of the war. So that was a big deal. And Burnham finds out about this, and he's done a little bit of gold prospecting in his day. He knows this network of old prospectors. And they remember where everything, they weren't looking for manganese back then, but they would find it and then be like, oh, this sucks, and leave it. But then that was still up here. So he goes to these guys, finds out where they've run into manganese before, and fucking, I don't know, does a great job of producing manganese. I'm sorry I said manganese so many times in this section. Those too many times. But he also Burnham gets super rich. He struck oil on a piece of land between LA and Long Beach, and then he and his family moved into 3 large houses under one of the O's in the brand new Hollywood land sign. Burnham kept a letter from Duquesne in his desk for the rest of his life, which said, to my friendly enemy, the greatest scout in the world, whose eyes were the vision of an empire, I craved the honor of killing him, but failing that, I extend my heartiest admiration. Which I think is a beautiful sentiment. And in the end, the Hippo idea just kind of fizzled out. The bill died in committee. You know, the main proponents of it went on to do other shit. And then the Department of Agriculture did come out at some point, even though they were kind of on board for this brief time. They did come out at a point, and they were like, yeah, actually, upon further review, under no circumstances should we be fucking importing van-sized fucking ill-tempered shit-spraying hippopotamuses into our... They would fuck our shit up, frankly. That's a horrible idea. What were we thinking? And I mean, it's like the turn of the century. Everybody's hammered probably anyway in the middle of the day. It was just because water wasn't... America, in the end, is like, you know what? We'll just get more cows, honestly. Right, we don't probably need to get into hippos. We'll just get more cows and probably more pigs and chickens. You know, we'll play the hits. You know, get the animals that don't need a whole pitch. You know, I would say, and that's what we did. We started moving toward factory farming. So happy ending there. And yeah, that's the story of the American Hippo Bill of 1910. I mean, that really seems like a bad idea. But I also, you know, I don't know. I don't have to deal with water hyacinths choking my waterways either. So fucking easy for me to say. You know, I'm always trying to make the point that, like, Dallas has more history than just the Kennedy assassination. You know, it doesn't always have to be the Kennedy assassination. Like, a lot of other stuff has gone on here. So whenever I see something non-Kennedy assassination related that's like Dallas history, I get really excited about it. And I had one of those this week. My girlfriend and I, we watch Dick Van Dyke sometimes at night, the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's just a really good show. But anyway, we have it on end credits. It says Fashions by Nardis of Dallas. I'm thinking, that's us, you know? And I look it up. Sure enough, son of a bitch, that is some good-ass Dallas history. Turns out Nardis of Dallas is owned by a fella named Ben Gold. Ben Gold, he was a transplant from New York to Dallas, and he was friends with Rose Marie, who played Sally Rogers on the Dick Van Dyke Show. And then it said his company, Nardis, provided most of the clothes for Dick Van Dyke. And then it said, after that, it was like, how fun is that? Then it said, interestingly enough, one of Ben Gold's pattern cutters at Nardis was none other than Abraham Zapruder, amateur videographer of the Kennedy assassination. So fuck me. Sorry, I thought I had some good non-JFK related Dallas history, but it turns out I just have some mildly good JFK related history, but it was interesting. There's an article about it on by Paula Boss or Bossy, I don't know how you pronounce that, on flashbackdallas.com. But interesting stuff. There you go. Thanks for joining us. Hit subscribe, follow us on Instagram, shout out y'all. Appreciate you. Love you all. See you next time.
Got digging through the past, crazy tales they uncover fast. History stranger than you think, They'll also talk about wieners in a blink. They'll talk about wieners in a blink. Oddball history.